Hey, what's up? This is Taylor Gray, Ezra Bridger from Star Wars Rebels, and you're listening to Cantina Conversations.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Cantina Conversations, the best conversational podcast in the entire galaxy. I am one of your hosts, Will Beeman, joined as always by my two Canadian compadres, starting off with the number one Star Wars fan, DJ Gillard. DJ, how are you today?
Hi, I'm a little tired, not gonna lie to you. Waking up at 4:30 for this dumb show, so it's a little much.
The
But
dedication is great because you even beat me. I woke up at 5.
yeah, well, I wouldn't have beat you if I didn't have to work, but I had to work really early. So if not
And,
for this, I would have woken up at like 10:30, just a terrible human being.
well, I love that you're in it to win it. We need that kind of
Yeah,
dedication for
yeah,
our content.
exactly.
And also joining us this week is the ever so lovely Jackson Wells. Jackson, how are you today?
Pleasure to be here. I got to show off. I got this Star Wars shirt I want to show off. It's got
I love that.
some.
I love that shirt so much.
What, DJ? What are you doing? Sighing at me?
I don't. What's even
You don't
going
like
on
it?
there?
It's
Oh, there
Kenner,
was
the
action
Kenner
stickers.
lines.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think it's a great shirt. I'm
I think it's
super
fine.
jealous of it. I wish I had it too. I'm just
Okay.
wearing the Super
Bad start.
Yakai Jar Jar is the key to all of this shirt, and DJ's just wearing a
Like
solid
a
black
red
tee.
shirt with a little
Oh,
shirt
that's
pocket
red?
with
It looks
dots on
black.
it. Yeah, it's red.
It's a maroon.
Maroon,
Okay.
whatever.
I started reading this last night finally, the Star Wars book, and that I didn't realize when I got it. Like I knew it was dense when it came in and I looked through it, but this is like basically a textbook like that you would use for school. And one of the three authors that wrote this with Pablo Hidalgo and the other guy, let me look up his name real quick. Dan Zare is a school teacher. So maybe that's why.
Mm.
So like if I ever weaseled my way into teaching a class like about Star Wars, this is definitely the textbook I'm going to use.
How much is the book?
What's that?
How much is the book?
It was like $20.
You'd be a good
Yeah,
professor.
you see,
Yeah.
yeah, like if you were gonna teach a class on that, you would have to up the price to like 200, just
Yeah.
because like why not?
Well, I
Why
would
not?
probably pair it up with another book. Like it would probably be like this book, the George Lucas biography, and How Star Wars Conquered the Galaxy. Those would probably be the three books that I would require for my class because that
And
would pretty
Alphabet
much
Squadron.
cover everything you could cover in a semester.
And Alphabet Squadron, just because it's the best. you
Yeah,
know?
and Alphabet Squadron. Yeah, DJ, even going further with your number one fandom, you're actually
I
reading
know.
the books now.
I didn't read any today. I came home from work and I turned on a podcast and I played 10 games of Rocket League and lost all of them.
Oof.
It was incredible actually, but I have not read any yet. So
Well,
it's very sad. Very sad.
I'm just proud of you for
Anyways.
making the effort.
Yeah.
But the reason why we are all here and you are joining us on this lovely Monday is because it is the return of Mando Mondays, our Mandalorian in review show, which is also going to kind of be a hybrid of our actual podcast as well, since we're just going to kind of stick to the Monday release date thing instead of doing 2 episodes a week.
Can you imagine we used to do 2 episodes a week?
I don't know
That was
how
a
we
wild
did
time.
it. Yeah, just shows how much different our personal lives are
Yeah.
since when we did this the first
Yeah.
go around. But
It helped that you didn't have a job at the time.
yeah, being unemployed was great for podcasting. I loved going to bed not knowing if I was going to be able to pay my mortgage.
Yeah. But at least you got to do 2 podcasts a week.
Yeah,
You know?
you know what? It was the friends that we made along the way is what
Yeah,
made it worth it. But my dog is bothering the crap out of me. Every time I talk to my computer now, she thinks like I'm in trouble and like starts pestering me. But anyway, Mandalorian season 2 finally has dropped with chapter 9, the Marshal, and oh my god, because it was just a week ago on this very podcast where I was saying my hope for this season was people kept their expectations in check and learned from the
That's
first
gone out the
season.
window.
I punted that so far out the window within 5 minutes of this episode. I'm riding the train to the grave now because the whole episode just blew me away from the scale of everything, the action. I can't wait to. I've been jonesing all day to talk about it, and we're not recording on our typical day. We're recording on actual episode release day, so it's even more fresh in my mind. I can't wait to get to it. So without further ado, let's start discussing Mandalorian Chapter 9, The Marshal. So there's a pretty great opening scene here where he's going down this like dark, seedy alley with a bunch of graffiti everywhere. Like I noticed there was a C-3PO graffiti. I'm pretty sure, I'll have to watch it again, but I'm pretty sure one of the graffiti tag things was the robot dude that's in Battlestar Galactica. I don't know the name. I've never seen Battlestar Galactica, but I know what the robot looks like. Yeah, I'm not a dork, but I know what the robot looks like. But it would be funny if that is like the first seed planted for Katie Sackhoff to be Bo-Katan, because she was in Battlestar Galactica. Okay. That's like her big thing. But so I noticed that though, thought it was funny. I'm a little disappointed though that when he reaches into the doorway though to go inside so he can be like, I'm here to talk to Gor Koresh, and they let him in for like the underground wrestling thing. This moment reminded me a lot of Detective Pikachu when he has to go to the underground Pokemon fighting ring. So I was way wrong on my prediction that the wrestling scene was Jabba's palace, and
I think everyone was.
Yeah, just the bad people. I mean, I saw some theories thinking that it was Maz Kanata's place, but
that would have been cool.
Yeah, because everyone was like, "Look at all the flags, just like Maz's castle." I thought it would have been cool if Jabba's palace was just like where the bad dudes hung out at, because they have nowhere else to hide. But
I actually thought when they do an initial shot later in the episode of that cave where the thing is, I was for a second I was like, is that the cave that Luke's walking into, like the back entrance to Jabba's palace? Then I was like, that blew up. What am I talking about? For a second I was like, is this going to be a thing? Is he living in Jabba's palace? I was like, no.
Yeah, so he's going in there and he's trying to get some information about like where his kind are, because he's trying to find other Mandalorians. And Gor Koresh is like kind of like a gangster in a way, where he's like trying to get Mando to gamble his Beskar steel armor, and who's played by John Leguizamo of all actors.
I just read that.
That makes sense. I feel that.
Sid the Sloth. So he's like, "Are you a gambling man, Mando?" And he was like, "No, not when I'm sure of something," or something along those lines. But that's when he shoots one of the Gamorrean wrestlers, so that way he can make sure the result is how he wants. And then like him and 5 goons surround Mando, and then like Baby Yoda, or Sebastian notices the trouble abound, so he closes his little hatch thing, and then I'm just too excited about the episode. I'm blanking on what the like wrist spark thing is called from season 1 that he has, because he launches that out to take all those guys out.
Yeah.
And then cool. This opening fight though is the first. I'm gonna have our listeners try and think of a good like hashtaggy name for it, because I can't think of what these moments are going to be called, because it happened during the first season and it happened during this episode, so I think it's going to happen all season. But this is like the first Papa Pout moment where I started crying happy tears, was this fight, because the fight choreography has improved so much compared to season 1.
It looks really good.
When he is like using his head, where he absorbs that blow and then headbutts the dude and then like cuts over and starts fighting him that way. That whole fight sequence was so good. And that's how you really knew we were getting into it though, because it didn't waste any time with the action. And he figures out like the other one that wears armor like him, the last he heard of was on Tatooine. And he's like, "Oh, I've been there before, but I haven't seen anyone of my kind." And he was like, "Well, that's where they're at. You got to go find them." And he leaves that guy.
This whole scene feels like Batman. Like when
it
he
is
does the
very
thing where he
Batman-esque.
grabs it and he like ties him up and he makes him do the thing. I was like, this is Batman.
He should have just like hung him up and came right up, and he's like, "Who are you, man?" He's, "I'm Batman.
I'm Mandalorian.
I'm Mando."
Swear to me.
But so he goes back to Tatooine, and very very much unfortunate on my behalf is we get to see Amy Sedaris' character
No,
again.
she was good in this one.
She was
great.
funny.
You guys
I
liked
like
her
it.
in the
It was
last
really
season
funny.
too, though.
I didn't. I wouldn't go that far.
But yeah, she's
But
back. She's still.
This one definitely played on the fact that like everyone hated her, and there's like we're doubling down. Like
You
we're gonna
think? You
keep
think
this
there's
joke
more of like a
running.
meta to it?
Yeah, I
there's a
think
bit of
they're
meta
totally
to it,
doubling
yeah.
down.
Yeah. In
Some of the parts of this entire episode feel like double downs, but they made it work this time.
yeah.
We'll get into it like after, but like they definitely doubled down. Like this is a diversion for the most part, you know.
Mhm.
But
And
we'll
like
get to that later.
her three stooge droids show up to start working on the ship, and she's like, no, we know he doesn't like droids. And he's like, no, actually,
Character
the
development.
ship could use a one over. And she's like, he likes droids. And
Yeah.
then they start doing all their antics to take care of the ship or whatever. And she's like super stoked to see Sebastian. And
Yeah. She's like, can I have him?
yeah.
Oh,
And
yeah.
he's like, I'm trying to find this place called what's it called?
Maz Peltos?
Yeah, Mal's Palto, I think is what it's called.
While you look for it, I really liked this part because it's finally doing the thing that everyone talks about for Star Wars, where it's like the planet is not just one town. Like every planet is just like, and we go to Mos Eisley Cantina
Right.
and like that kind of
Right.
thing. And this is like, oh, like they're doing
Mos
the whole
Pelgo,
map
that's
thing.
what
Like
it's
there's a
called.
bunch of names. Mos
Yeah.
what?
Mos Pelgo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
we're
so that's
close.
what it's called. I can't believe that slipped my mind though. But yeah, so he's like, I can't find it on a map, and she's like, well, I got a map of Tatooine. Let's find it that way. And she's like, R5, because now R5's working for her.
Yeah.
And I saw a lot of people on Twitter after this episode that was like, the biggest reveal of them all, R5 is still alive and well. But then I was like, did you guys forget in episode or chapter 5 in last season he's in the cantina? So like we already knew he was alive.
I did tell you the truth. Yes, I did forget that, to be honest with you. So when I didn't even catch it the first time, one of Mining Jackson's friends actually came into the store at my work today, and then he just told me that. Then I was just like, oh, I didn't even notice. Then on my rewatch, I was like, yeah, that's R5. That's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, because he like rolls up to the counter at Mos Eisley right after
yeah.
Mando first arrives or whatever. And so I thought it was kind of funny how everyone forgot that he was in season 1 or whatever. So like he like takes off towards this town, and I just keep noticing the visuals of this episode and the scale of everything are so much greater than any part of season 1. Like they did a very good job of expanding the scope and make it a little bit more blockbustery.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It feels like they've like kind of leveled up all of their like both technically and like just in terms of like being comfortable with like making the show. It certainly like they equally kept everything kind of similar in terms of like story structure and then like just like general cinematography, but just all looks so much better and like feels so much more like fluid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I imagine that's less of a budget thing and more of just they're getting used to like using the volume and like everyone's just kind of refining their craft. Because like I would think the budget for this show is probably pretty similar to season 1, just considering like season 1 probably already had an astronomical budget for a TV show, like for especially for a streaming show, considering it was like Disney Plus's first. Like they were all in on season 1 already, so I don't know. I'm very doubtful like the budget took that much of a hike.
But I don't know though, because
I saw that fly.
There's like a fly. But I don't know though, because the visual effects to me look way better than any part of season 1 too. Like it looks like they either put more of an effort into things or they've just figured out how to get.
I feel like the volume is like technically a game engine. So in
Yeah,
theory,
that's
you'd be
true.
working to upgrade that software throughout like production and like especially considering they were like literally using it for the first time ever like last season. I would think that they would kind of be like upgrading it like so like it's literally just better this time around.
Yeah.
Like games do that year over year. It's like, oh, this looks like marginally better. Like I guess that doesn't make sense in that context of that's what they're doing. So
But it's funny though is when they have like this whole little scene where he's traveling via speeder bike to the town, and it's almost like a cutscene that a video game would use to hide a loading screen.
Yeah.
While you're traveling to the city, because like
in
shifts.
Red Dead when you're
I was just about to say that.
Square to make sure you're going at the same speed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's funny though, because like the episode shifts immediately to just like a straight Western. After this point, and the rest of the episode is just like it's just a Western, and it fits so well though. And he like arrives at this little desolate town and shows up to the bartender, and he's like, well, I'm trying to find a guy that wears armor that looks like me. And he's like, oh, you mean the Marshal? And as soon as he said that, I was just like, oh, we're gonna get it. And then he's like, see for yourself. And then they turn to the door, and then you see Timothy Oliphant and Cobb Vanth just there at the door. This was the second time the happy tears happened, was when we got to see Cobb Vanth in the flesh. Because I still can't believe the whole existence of it.
Oh, it's so funny because like when you turn and look at him, he kind of looks really dorky in the armor. It's like broken, and it's like just like a huge helmet on his, like he's basically wearing like a sweater underneath the chest and shoulder plates.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, oh man, this guy's kind of dorky, and then he takes off the helmet, and I'm like, yeah.
To me, Timothy Oliphant is looking pretty good for a man in his 50s.
Yeah, I was so happy with how it looked. I was so happy that just looked stupid. It looked completely dumb. I think it was smart too, in the sense that I think everyone, all the casual fans, not to be gatekeeping, but like anyone that doesn't like know who Cobb Vanth is, they probably looked at that shot and immediately thought that's not Boba, which I think is effective, because if they made him look like Boba and then it wasn't Boba, I think there's a backlash, right?
Yeah, and like, that's
what. So this I think worked as like just like, hey, we're gonna show you the Boba armor, but you're gonna know, gonna know pretty much immediately. And then he takes the helmet off, and he's like a white dude with slick back hair, just like, this is not Boba Fett. Don't worry.
There's a guy that I ate lunch with at work that was not aware of who Cobb Vanth was, and he said that when he shows up for the first time, and he's like, that's not Boba Fett.
It worked.
Which is kind of the intended, you would think. Because like the only reason I know who Cobb Vanth is because you famously predicted this months ago.
I know, that's our show's claim to fame.
So otherwise I'd be like, this isn't Boba Fett, and then I'd be like,
And just to remind everybody before we go on, our live show where I did say that Cobb Vanth would show up this season, I went back and looked. We recorded it on May 9th, or streamed it on May 9th, I should say. And the news of that did not break till May 19th. So I beat everyone in Hollywood by 10 days. And I listen to a lot of Star Wars podcasts besides ours. And I still, except for like that news of casting being done, did not hear any other podcast predict he would show up, because I don't think anyone thought that they would take this small little character from interlude chapters of books and actually use him. Like, that was my biggest worry, was they were going to end up retconning him, and they kind of did in a way, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, I also...
Will, can we pause for a second?
What?
I'm sorry. So my PS4 was on, but it was like muted, and then it went into rest mode because it wasn't like getting used, and then the TV turned on when it goes off, so I have to turn off the TV. I'm very sorry. You're gonna have to edit this.
DJ Jackson, I do agree with you a little bit though, because he does look dorky, and I think he needed to look dorky.
Yeah,
like,
in a good way, I meant
it. He is like, though, just a regular dude that's trying to pretend he's bigger than himself because he's wearing that armor.
He's my immediate reference point for this is wrong, because this is a trope in like stories, but I'm reminded of a side quest in Ghost of Tsushima where this guy,
I know what you're talking about,
steals like samurai armor from like this like big battle or whatever, and he goes to the small town and like pretends to be a samurai and makes all of the like townsfolk like wait on him and like feed him and stuff like that. And I thought it was going to be one of those situations where he was like taking advantage of this town as being like, I'm the big bounty hunter, everyone give me free drinks. It turns out not exactly the same.
He was just being a nice guy. Like, he was
I thought that was the route they were going to go as well, was they were going to make him kind of a jerk. but he's not. He's like extremely likable, and I really hope when this episode airs and they have the next Mando Monday series happen, there's a Black Series figure of him for pre-order because I want it now.
No doubt in my mind.
Yeah, it's so and it was funny too, is like when he sits at that table and takes the helmet off and puts it down, and like they zoom in on it, so you're like, yep, that's for sure Boba's helmet though. But like, and then they show Mando standing there. I can just like tell from how that editing was done, where Mando was looking at the helmet and was like, "What are you doing? You're not a real Mando."
That's what I was gonna say. I could like definitely get that, where like, because like from the first season that like the helmet's a big deal, and this guy just like flippantly takes it off and puts it
like,
down. Now
didn't care at all.
That's like, it speaks back to like the acting we talked about a lot last season of like Mando, be it either Pedro Pascal or like the other people who are like
Wayne or
like you can just like feel them like being like, whoa, even though it's just like a black face cover,
which is so weird, like how they can sell that body language so well. Or it has to just be because of the way the editing's structured, but like it just sells the way that stuff works. And I think a lot of the stuff too, like with that moment and just the scale of everything from this episode, it also helps a lot that this episode was directed by Jon Favreau, who, even compared to Taika Waititi last season, by far is the most experienced blockbuster director to work on the show so far. Like he's written a bunch of the episodes, but he never directed one until now.
I was about to ask, I was like, I don't think he directed anything last episode.
No, last season he let everyone else play with his toys. He just told the story, but I think it helped a lot to capture things.
Yeah. One other thing about this moment that I was kind of surprised by, I don't know what your guys' take will be on this. I was surprised that Mando, maybe he did, but like he didn't say it, but he didn't recognize that it was Boba Fett. Because in my mind, Boba Fett is like working for the Empire, is like a kind of a big deal in the Mandalorian, like not even Mandalorian, but like the creeds and the not the creed, what's it called, the guilds, like the bounty hunters guild and everything. I would have thought that like he would have at least like recognized like that's Boba Fett, like he's the guy.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Like I thought they were gonna do something like that. I was a little surprised they didn't. I don't know if like they just didn't say it, and like when we eventually get to Boba in this season, that like they're just gonna be like, he'll be like, oh, I've heard of you or something like that. Like I wonder, I don't know. I thought that was strange.
You could kind of think though, like even though Boba Fett's not a Mandalorian, he should be known as the bounty hunter Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Mando should know he's dead.
Yeah.
Like surely word got around that Boba Fett died in the Sarlacc pit, so he probably didn't think anything of it, other than he saw that armor and was just like, wait a second.
Yeah, maybe he was just like, yeah, he did die on Tatooine. I guess this guy stole it, and he just didn't care. He was like, I guess this dude did this. But maybe that's it.
And it's like they kind of have like a back and forth about how Mando is like, well, I need that armor, I need to reclaim it and take it back to my kind because that's sacred to us. And he's like, yeah, I can do that. But he's like, but I need help. And he's like, well, what do you need help with? And then like you hear the rumbling, and he's just like, oh, just 1 second. And then they kind of walk outside, and then like the giant earthquake basically. And I thought it was hilarious too, is when they were having like the cutaway reaction shots of when this thing was approaching. Like it went to like a fan or like a wind fan, and then it like cut to residents running inside, and then it had like that slow zooming in shot on one of the banthas, and it was just like, yeah. I was laughing so hard at that because that was a good comedic cutaway shot there.
Oh yeah, all the banthas in this episode are really good.
Yeah, they're pretty funny. But then like you see this giant wave or tsunami of sand come. And then emerging from the sand, I thought was like a sandworm at first, but it's actually a reveal of a crate dragon, which is hype AF because...
Explain it to us, Will.
Well, I mean, like the crate dragons were like supposed to be extinct, basically. And not like necessarily officially, but like assumed extinct. Because you see the skeleton of one, in the desert at the beginning of A New Hope when R2 and C3PO are wandering through the desert.
This is
like
the
that
thing with Obi-Wan
big,
where he goes, "Rah!"
Yeah, and like when Obi-Wan appears to scare off the Tusken Raiders, that giant yell that he makes that's supposed to mimic the sound of the crate dragon.
Star Wars is dumb.
It's very
franchise.
dumb. But so like it's an established thing, but like at this point in time, they were supposed to they were assumed extinct because we hadn't seen them in anything. So you were just like, yeah, they just don't exist right now. But now we know that they still exist, and so that was just really awesome to see. And I woke up this morning, watched the episode, then I went to work, and then I ran errands, came back home, watched the episode, and now we're recording. So I got to go back through and do some more digging into like Crate Dragon lore too, because some of the stuff I remember that we'll talk about later in the episode, but like I know there's like 2 species of crate dragons. I can't remember off the top of my head which species this one is, or if it's a new species they made for the canon or anything like that. So I'll update that on another time. But I was very excited for that to show up, and
I just thought it looked cool.
Yeah, it does look very good too. Like again, shout out to the visual effects team because that could have looked very cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very well done.
I remember I said to you about halfway through watching the episode, I was like, I feel like the CGI here is a little off. And I was specifically referencing like the little droids.
Yeah, that scene was weird.
And there's like another small animal that jumped out, but then the whole creature, and I was like, oh, here's the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks really good. And they do the smart thing where they like kind of hide it for most of the episode, which is like how you do that and not like blow money.
Right. So like the Mandalorian pretty much agrees to help take out the crate dragon, and in exchange for this to happen. So like they're going to meet up with the Tusken Raiders because they want to find out where this crate dragon lives so they can see like how to take him out or whatever. So while they're on speeder bikes crossing the desert, one thing to note that's really cool is Cobb Vanth's speeder bike is a pod racer engine, which is a sweet throwback to the episode 1 era. A lot of people, because like I see the similarity. Everyone was like, "Oh, he made a speed bike out of Anakin's pod racer." I don't think it's the exact same. The coloring looks different to me.
Yeah, I looked at the same thing. I was like, that's not Anakin's, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I mean that would have been way too small universe world building, and that's like kind of a critique with Star Wars, is it does things a little bit too close to the vest of its world building, where it's like, that's how we got Rey Palpatine. But so I thought it was awesome though that his speeder bike is like a pod race thing, and I also think it's cool how the speeder bikes work in this episode like a horse would. Like if this was a Western, and to even drive down the Western connection more, I didn't know this till after the fact. And after you had mentioned that this was just Deadwood Jackson, I was talking to one of my friends, even after that conversation, that had seen Deadwood and is also big into Star Wars. So I guess Timothy Oliphant, was like the sheriff in Deadwood.
Yeah.
And then the bartender in this town is played by the actor that played the bartender in Deadwood.
They're just fans. They're just like, we just want to do it again.
So perfect. It's just like, hey, just do your Deadwood roles, except you're in these costumes. And they're like, oh, well, that's easy.
Acting is easy.
Yeah. So I thought that was pretty cool, though. But this is where we get the montage that kind of explains who the heck Cobb Vanth is.
I thought this was weird.
I heard that this was like mostly pulled from Aftermath, right? Like this is kind of like an interpretation.
It's
of
pretty
what
much because he's just in the interlude chapters, like I've said. He's maybe 15, 20 pages max out of 400 page novels. So basically, if you don't want to go back and read the Aftermath books, even though they're well worth it, the flashback pretty much tells you his story. There's some small differences that I guess you can use the word retcon with that I'm sure will make big time canon people a little upset because like
I haven't seen anyone upset yet,
instead of Mos
personally.
Pelgo, the town was called like Freetown or something along those lines. And I mean, you could just say that was Mos Pelgo. That's like its nickname is Freetown.
Yeah.
And instead of like him wandering the desert, running away from this mining clan, and like being found by the Jawas, he like sought out the Jawas because like he knew they had a shop. So like he purposely went to their shop of rare items, saw the Mandalorian item, and bought them on purpose because he wanted to be the sheriff of Tatooine. So they've changed that to kind of make him more of like a victim, so you can empathize with his cause, I suppose, to where he's been found and then like traded those crystals for the armor, and that gave him the strength to come back and fight against the mining compound and kind of free that town. So like in all honesty, I like the story they told in this episode better than the books, but I think it's awesome that they generally stuck with the idea. There's not that many the amount of changes is basically like in the Ahsoka novel, where she still has her original lightsabers, and then she has her green ones, and then Anakin gives her blue ones in Clone Wars. So there's a continuity issue there. That's pretty much the same difference of what they've done with Cobb Vanth in the Aftermath books.
Yeah, we should be thankful that this is all they did.
Yeah.
What other universes I feel like would do in these kind of situations, and how many books that Star Wars has, and they're still able to like kind of juggle this and be okay for the most part. Like I don't think people should be upset about this. Like it's fine.
I honestly thought, since he was such a kind of throwaway character in the book, that they would just use that character's name and then make up all of their own stuff. Like I was actually pretty impressed that they kept with generally the exact story of who he is.
Mm-hmm. I thought this like weird, this like flashback thing was kind of like weirdly like shoehorned in just for like exposition on the character. But like the story they told was like interesting enough. I was like, okay, we're getting the background in like this weird flashback way. But it's interesting.
Yeah, I mean they probably kind of had to, because are you guys gonna go read the Aftermath books for 3 interlude chapters? No. I mean,
I think it's pretty easy to just go, yeah, he got this armor. Like they didn't. I'm criticizing it more than I actually care. So we can just move on.
Okay.
It was a minute and a half scene. It's fine.
Yeah. So like at this point though, they get into like this crevasse, and they run into like the Tusken Raiders like dogs that we last saw in Attack of the Clones at their camp when Anakin tries to save his mom and then doesn't. Like that's the last time we've seen these dog creatures. I know there's a name for them, I can't remember it, but so like they're staring them down with their guns or whatever, and then like Mando like yells and then knows how to calm them down and starts petting them, and then the Tusken Raiders come from behind, and then they carry
Mando's a man
on
of culture.
Yeah, Mando's very, very learned Mando. But like the one thing that they carried on from the first season that I'm a really big fan of is the Tusken Raiders speaking American Sign Language to communicate.
I knew it. I forgot, so I guessed it right.
Yeah, so I think that's awesome that they've kept that going. I haven't looked into who the actors are that they played, but I know in the first season of Mandalorian, all of those actors were deaf actors.
Remember this?
Really?
So
that's cool.
I'm hoping they kept that trend. I see no reason why they wouldn't have.
Yeah, it's probably hard to find, but
the thing that I hate though about this one, and it's the same. I don't like that he's making the Tusken Raider noises while he does the sign language. I think that's really dumb. It's just it reminded me of in Solo, where as much as I love Solo, I still think the moment when he's talking Shriwook to Chewbacca is dumb. And that's what this moment reminded me of, is like when Han's speaking Wookiee back to him, is when he's like going like and sign languaging with it. Like I thought that kind of killed the moment a little bit to me, because they didn't do that in the last season.
It's weird.
Goofy. You know, I just want you to picture Pedro Pascal making those noises.
In the voiceover booth, just making a bunch of grunts and stuff.
If they do another gallery series, I hope we get that little clip of him doing the voices and what was going on there, because that would be really fun.
Or at least like have Favreau like Instagram video post something about it.
He's like in the booth with him, just like, no, you gotta you gotta do it different.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that'd be good.
And even the Tusken Raiders kind of doubled down on making noises while they were signing too, compared to and at times a lot of their noises reminded me of the clickers from The Last of Us.
I don't know.
So like, I don't know, that whole thing kind of really took me out of the moment when they kept doing that. And like, it carries over to the campfire scene. And this was the first scene where I could kind of tell where the set ended and the volume began.
Really? I didn't notice anything.
I could tell like in the foreground where the set of sand and campground had ended and probably where the virtual wall started. It was it was a little noticeable, but like,
okay,
they're like negotiating how they're going to get this stuff figured out. And they want the crate dragon gone just as bad as everyone else does. So like they agree to show them where he lives and to partner up if they agree to help each other, because they have to team up to take out this creature.
This is so interesting to me, just because like I feel like this is one of those stories you've seen so many times as like an actual like Western, and I'm just like, man, they just kind of like they just blend it perfectly. I'm like, this is like a story that like I'm like, yes, these two warring factions have got to get together to defeat their common enemy, and it's like in sand, and it just like I'm like it just feels good, kind of like have like not a predictable, but like you kind of know the beats, and it just feels like cool to see how they execute on them.
The power of two can take down one, a dyad in the force,
as they might say. Yeah.
I do
Mando
think
and Cobb Vanth just died in the force, the true dyad.
I think it's also very cool though, like on top of the American Sign Language stuff though, is they're really hammering down on the Tusken Raiders being Native Americans and kind of helping establish their lore a little bit better as less raging savage. Because as much as I love Star Wars A New Hope, the Tusken Raiders are very tropey on Native American Western tropes from back in the 50s and 60s. And those were not very friendly to the Native American population. So it's very nice that they're kind of cleaning that up and making the lore a little bit better and adding some respect behind them. Like, even
I think they're so interesting.
And even as we were discussing while we were like live chatting while we were going through the episode, like even the slur of sand people, and even Cobb Vanth kind of uses it in a slurish way. When he's like explaining this to the townsfolk. So like after this campfire scene though, like they go to the cave of where the crate dragon is living, and they're like, well, we're going to show you like how we've been keeping him at bay and drawing him out and stuff. Another interesting note is they're still using the binoculars that they traded for in chapter 5. And so like there's this Tusken Raider that ties this bantha up there and like yells to draw the dragon out, because they've been feeding it banthas to like keep it at bay, and the Tusken Raider is just in a mad dash trying to get back to safety.
It's so sad.
And then he just gets eaten.
Why didn't like I feel so bad, like shout out to him because he's just so brave. Like I felt so bad. Why didn't they like I guess they didn't want I was about to say like why don't they just put the speeder bike down and let him just hop on there and there? But I was like, I guess you don't want to lose a speeder, but like you don't want to lose a person either. Like I don't know.
On Twitter after the episode aired, I can't remember who it was, but somebody tweeted, I didn't think seeing a Tusken Raider running at full speed would bring me so much joy.
He's trying.
So like he eats the Tusken Raider instead of the bantha. So then Mando's just like, well, they're open to new ideas. So they go back to the town, and Cobb Vanth like proposes to the townsfolk, and he's like, hey, we have a way of defeating the crate dragon, but it requires us to team up with our enemies, the Tusken Raiders.
Go, I'm not working with that kind.
Yeah, we're not working with them. You know, just like standard tropey racist small town in the Wild West. But and they're just kind of like, we got to do it. It's the only way we can get things taken care of. It'll be fine. And then there's like the whole like exposition of them loading up the explosives to take to the cave. They're like working together. One Tusken Raider drops some explosives, and then there's like the grumpy man that's like, "Whoa, what are you doing? That you can't be doing things like that." And Cobb Vanth has to step in, and
Cobb Vanth's line after that was really funny too. I can't remember exactly what he says, but he was like, "This is gonna be great," or something.
Yeah, he's just like, "This is gonna be great."
Yeah, it's gonna be a good time.
He says it all casually, and
yeah.
So like,
but in deep down, you know, he's like terrified.
Yeah,
like, someone's gonna die. Someone's gonna die.
Cobb Vanth and Mando just kind of supervise at this point and just like watch everyone do all the hard work, and like even that girl comes up at one point. She's like, "The detonator's ready. The explosives are planted," and he's like, "All right, thank you. Stay safe, citizen." And she just like walks away, and so like they draw the crate dragon out, and then this is where epic action time begins. And even the aspect ratio of the episode changes.
I saw that.
Which is like super it's super blockbuster.
They do it twice in this episode. All right.
Yeah, there's 2 parts during this moment where it does that, and it
Dark Knight Rises style, where you just keep switching back and forth, and it's more distracting
the Jon Favreau
than
experience.
Good.
Like, it's like we gotta have a big epic battle scene, 16:9 style.
They pull up the volume, and it reveals an extra like layer of LED TVs.
The force dropping down underneath them. Yeah.
So like they're like firing upon the dragon or whatever, because they're trying to draw him out further to like cover up the explosives so they can explode his belly, and it doesn't work. So then Mando and Cobb Vanth take off in their jetpacks to like go up
so
closer.
Cool when they do.
It's so. If I was a child when this show was out,
I know.
I don't know if I ever would have been able to recover, because this would have been just so awesome. Like it really does, just like Jon Favreau's pitch for this show. It just feels like you're playing with like your action figures, and they like take off flying. They land at the cliffside. They're like firing at it a bunch, and then they get back down to try and draw it out. And Mando's like, "Well, I got an idea." Because he's like standing next to this bantha that's just like loaded with explosives on its side.
And they just had some extra, so they just left it there.
Yeah, and he's just
like I don't know if this was like always the plan for him, or if he was.
Yeah.
And this is like, the bantha starts, or not the bantha. The crate dragon starts like spewing acid on people, and melting them.
Yeah. He's just like spitting this goo out. And
I couldn't tell if people were dying here. I think.
I couldn't. They for sure were dying, but I couldn't tell if they were melting or just being like drowned in the mucus.
Yeah, or if it was like just so heavy that you just impales you pretty much.
Yeah, I mean the crate dragon clearly has a bad case of the allergies, but
yeah.
So like
that's what COVID-19 will do to you. Actually, that's how it happens. You start vomiting mucus. It's terrible.
So like Mando's like, "I got a plan, but you're not gonna like it." And then he like just hits the Boba jetpack, and it sends him flying, just like in Return of the Jedi.
Yep.
Which I think is a funny callback, just to show like how crappy his jetpack was, where all it took was a little nudge, and then they would just go like on a tailspin flying somewhere. And so he gets swallowed with the bantha, and goes under the sand, and then pops up, and like the crate dragon is like getting electrocuted from his rifle, and he like flies out in the jetpack, turns around, and then blows up the dragon. Oh, it's such an awesome shot. Yeah, it's so
not looking at the dragon, the explosion.
It looks so good in 4K HDR on my TV as well. My new TV I have. I wish I could have saw the first season the first time with this picture quality, but it's such a good action moment. The whole fight scene is just so phenomenal. And so like after this is happening, they're like ransacking the body of the crate dragon for meat. Like even the Mandalorian takes like this giant piece of meat, and Baby Yoda's
like,
doing.
I'm sell this too.
I feel like Baby Yoda's trying to heal the dragon, because he has his hand on it, and like I guess he's just like feeling it because he wants some of it. But like I was under the idea where like he saw this dragon blow up, so he's like, well, I'm gonna heal him because I want to make sure he's okay. And then he like covers up the meat, and he's like, that's okay. And then a very deep cut in Star Wars legend lore comes into play, where the Tusken Raiders take out the pearl of the crate dragon, and like it's kind of like when the
That was so
Javas.
dumb.
It's kind of like when the Javas get the egg, and they're
Yes,
like
that's what
they're
I
like
thought of.
yay, and
Just as gross.
so like the whole story behind the pearl in the old canon was the crate dragons had these pearls in them that, and since they were hard to find, they were like a rare creature, they were very valuable, so like you could use them to buy anything you wanted. Like Han used a crate dragon pearl to buy into the original Sabat game that he won the Millennium Falcon with in Legends. Obviously it's not canon now, but like that's how he bought his way into that game back then. And you can also use these pearls to replace kyber crystals for lightsaber building, because like they come in different colors. Like there's like red, blue, green, white, and I think there's one other color too. But like it's like immediately I'm already seeing on Star Wars Twitter people thinking that whenever Ahsoka shows up, that like whatever lightsaber she's going to be having, like instead of having kyber crystal, she'll have crate dragon pearl, since it's like in canon now.
I think it
don't
was
think
just
that's
a
gonna
fun
happen.
reference.
Yeah, I think it was just a fun reference for people that know that kind of stuff, that throwback.
Yeah.
I
If
thought
you're
it
gonna
was-
kill the crate dragon, you might as well show the pearl too. At that
Yeah.
point, like you might
it's
as well
good
just throw
fan
the other people a
service.
bone.
Like
Yeah,
that,
throw 'em a bone.
that's yeah,
John Favreau, massive dork.
yeah,
Yeah.
huge dork, John Favreau. But like that's
I
good
guarantee
fan
John
service
wasn't
that
even doing
works.
this, and the Dave was just like, "Hey, you should do this thing. They're gonna freak out."
I don't know. Favreau was pretty big into the legend stuff.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it could be a combination of both, where they were just like, "Hey,
Yeah.
remember that they had pearls," and then they probably like geeked out and spent the night at someone's house, imagining how they were going to make it work. And
Yeah.
so like Boba gets, or not Boba, Mando gets the Boba armor from Cobb Vanth. The city's saved. The Tusken Raiders are free from the torture. He's getting ready to go back to his ship, and he's zooming back across the desert. You see the twin suns, and then we get the big moment that everyone's been waiting for. Is the camera pans over, it stops at some feet of this dark clothed luminous being. The camera pans up, and you just see this person looking over the canyon towards the sun, and then they turn around, and it's Tamora Morrison, assumingly as Boba Fett, all beaten up looking, covered in scars, walking away, and that's how the episode ends. And even though I had a feeling Boba was going to show up at some point, and he was going to be suitless, because as I've predicted and as it was confirmed, I knew Cobb Vanth was going to show up. It still caught me off guard, because for some reason I was not expecting him to be bald.
Yeah.
Am I wrong for like assuming he would have had hair?
I don't think so. I don't think I was like, oh, you know what? That's Sarlacc pit. Bad for the scalp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like his appearances in Clone Wars, he's always got hair, right?
He's got long hair too as a
Yeah.
kid. I don't know. You get
so-
old.
Yeah,
Well, I
guess.
mean, he had to shave his head to also fulfill his role as Rex later in the season. So that's
yeah,
they
it
just
made
had
it a
to do
lot
it.
easier for costume design, where he's just bald either
Yeah.
way.
Honestly, I'm not even joking.
I mean that's
I could
not a
totally
bad
see that
theory,
being
to be
a thing.
honest. And they could film all the Rex scenes first with a beard, and then have him shaved to film his Boba scenes.
Yeah.
Um,
Who knows?
Don't do this.
I
to
mean,
me.
we'll find out. But so like, what's your guys' thought, Jackson? We'll toss it to you first. What's your thought on Boba Fett allegedly being back from the dead?
I don't know. I'm not the boba guy. I don't know if any of us are the boba guy, but it's one of those things where it's like, this doesn't rustle my jimmies too much. But I'm like, you know what? Let's see what's going on. I've got the faith that they'll do something interesting. The thing is like, I feel like naturally we're kind of like past the need for Boba Fett. I guess my guess would be that Boba like somehow saw the armor on Mando's speeder, and he's going to try to intercept him before he leaves and gets his armor back. But I don't know. Like I said before, like I've said like previously in the first season, this show is kind of like weird in terms of what they do and when and time. So like we might not necessarily even see like Mando get off of his speeder, get on his ship, and fly away from Tatooine. But yeah, I don't know. Or like maybe they come back to Tatooine. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm like, I'm respectfully curious.
Yeah, like I don't know what they're gonna do, because like you absolutely could have it just be next episode where Boba goes after the armor, but then I'm just like, why would Boba go after the armor? Like I kind of just want them to move on from that and have Boba fulfill some sort of other role than just like, I want to be the dude I was before. Like I feel like we need more of a character arc from him rather than just be like an empty
Absolutely.
cameo pretty much. So I don't know. I don't know. They definitely could do the next episode where he's just tracking Mando and goes after the armor, and maybe not even going for the armor, just seeing like, why do you have my armor? Like, what's going on here? But yeah, I kind of feel like this is Endgame season 2 stuff more than it is right now. I feel like this is the tease, and he's actually just gonna, like, Mando's just gonna leave the planet for now.
How?
We'll continue on with the season, and then eventually we'll get back to this.
What if we never see him again?
It'd be crazy.
I think it would be kind of funny, to be honest.
Yeah, it would
just
be
a
kind of funny.
cameo. You're like, oh, he's alive.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
I'm
in the
surprised
same.
you guys didn't think that he was going to show up in this episode. Like as soon as they start the episode, I'm like, we're going to Tatooine and there's the Mandalorian there. I'm like, okay, it's gonna be Cobb Vanth, and this episode's gonna end with Boba Fett. Obviously, that's what's going to happen. That's what I felt like personally the entire way. I was like, they're not going to show Cobb Vanth and then not show Boba, because the casual audience is like wants to see that. They want to see where we're going.
Well, you
with
remember
that, so.
my guess I made a couple days before the episode was I thought that he was going to run into Boba Fett first, and Boba Fett was going to say, I know where my armor is. This guy has it. And him and Mando were going to team up to go against Cobb Vanth to get it. But then they made Cobb Vanth into like a good guy. But I'm kind of like with Jackson, where I don't really have that strong of an attachment to Boba Fett, because like growing up, as we know from the previous episodes of this podcast, the Empire Strikes Back was not my favorite one. The Return of the Jedi was, and Boba Fett just dies like a Looney Tune at the beginning of that. So
yeah. Well, what about the holiday special?
Well, yeah, he's cool in the holiday special, but like that's a cartoon, and
So
like I'm not really like super in love with Boba Fett as a character. Like I could have take him or leave him, really. Like he could come back fine, he could not come back, and that'd be fine. I trust in Filoni and Favreau to tell a story that's good about it. My speculation, though, if I could guess, is I think next episode they'll carry on with it, and Boba Fett is going to be the one to fill in Mando on who the Jedi are, because I think Boba's purpose as a character is he wants revenge on Luke, because in Return of the Jedi and Empire even, Luke, Han, and Leia screw him over and eventually put him into the Sarlacc pit.
Yeah,
so
they kill him.
Yeah, so I think he's going to want revenge on the Jedi, very similar
more so than he already does.
Well, like kind of like how Maul was obsessed with Obi-Wan, I think Boba Fett's going to be obsessed with Luke.
And this all leads to Sebastian Stan playing Luke in Mando season 3. We're no longer speculating responsibly.
I mean, they could always use Mark Hamill and de-age him.
Yeah, they could.
So, I mean,
I think we should stop, personally.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be honest, I've already seen speculation. People think Luke's showing up this season. So we're doing very well if we're being responsible with our speculation.
I don't think this is going to happen.
But yeah,
if
I think
it does,
that's
I'm here for it. But
I think that's what they're going to do with Mando, though, or with Boba, is he's going to be the one that's like, yeah, I know who the Jedi are.
He's the link.
Yeah, they're the one that.
It doesn't make sense in the sense that Mando still doesn't know where to go. Like, he got the armor, but he didn't talk to a real Mandalorian. Like, he still doesn't know what's happening. So, like, he could go off planet and, like, try to search somewhere else, because he's like, oh, that Mandalorian wasn't real. I got to find a different one. Got to track
It'll be funny,
else.
too, because Boba Fett's going to show up and be like, that's my armor. And he's like, you're not a Mandalorian either.
Can't catch a break.
Maybe that's how they convince Mando to start taking his helmet off more, is he meets two fake Mandos in a row, and he's like,
what's the silly dogma?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't understand this anymore. I'm not doing this. I'm going to start taking mine off.
How you lose the faith.
And what if like that kind of like puts him down the path of like starting to break away from whatever the creed is at this point? Like once we get dig into that lore, whenever we do this season, which I assume we will. I assume like
Mhm.
we're going back to Navarro. We're probably going to talk to the armor again. Like we're going to dig in
Yeah,
eventually. We're going to probably talk to Bo-Katan, maybe. So
maybe we'll have to see. I did
see.
think though that all of this stuff was going to happen in the first episode, and that was only because of the marketing. Like I had
Yeah.
remembered recently all of the marketing, like even the toys that came out that I stupidly bought all of, were only characters that showed up in the first and second chapter. And I was like, well, wait a minute. There's no way that all this Tatooine stuff is not just the first two chapters, because that's all they've been marketing is Tatooine backdrops. Like all those promo stills they released of Mando with the speeder bike, that's all in Cobb Vanth's town.
Mhm.
And all of the raiders on the banthas and stuff. Like they they were telling us in broad daylight that we were going to Tatooine the first episode, and
Yeah.
we just didn't make just didn't make the connection till now. But um overall for this episode though, it not only met my expectations but exceeded them in such a way that I can't contain my hype for the rest of the season now. The way they expanded the scope of the episode, even more than what episodes 7 and 8 did last season, the sky's the limit for how the rest of the season can go. And I'm so excited to see where they go with everything now, because it's very possible they have some side quest episodes like an episode 6 or an episode 5 and 4 where, but I don't know. I kind of feel like we're going to just get right to it. And this kind of episode is how the side quest episodes are going to be.
Yeah. To me, this
like,
was a side quest episode already, and
but it
it's
also carries through the narrative in a
yeah,
way.
it's a better mix than
Yeah,
before, where
I
it was
think
like it just felt like nothing happens in episode 5 and 6.
much
And then it's like,
stronger
oh,
writing.
things
Like I
happened.
think Favreau found his flow.
Yeah, it's interesting too because like throughout your whole kind of like plot walkthrough, you didn't really once mention Baby Yoda because like he's not really.
He's kind of an afterthought in this episode.
Yeah, he's like the
Yeah.
comic relief where he pops out of the pot once and goes ah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to kind of see because that was not my worry going in, but that they were kind of gonna like oversaturate us with the baby Yoda
Because he's been such a merchandising jackpot.
Yeah, they showed a lot of restraint in this episode, because I was totally expecting that too for season 2. Just like, all right, it's the Baby Yoda train, all aboard. Like
the Baby Yoda
just
show.
double down on Baby Yoda.
Yeah,
And
they
There's
showed
3
restraint.
Baby Yodas now in different
Yeah.
colors.
I wonder if all the 45-year-old moms are gonna stop watching the show now after this episode. Yeah, well, I didn't get what I wanted, so
That means I'll
She
stop
gets back
seeing
and
photos
sees-
of people dressing their Baby Yoda doll up in Halloween costumes. but yeah, so like this whole episode just blew me away. And I think a lot of the scope too, I'm gonna give a shout out here, is I think the main director of photography this season, last season, was Greg Fraser, who famously shot Rogue One. He shot Dune. He shot and he's shooting The Batman. So the person that's the main director of photography for this season is a man named Barry Iadioni, and his nickname is Baz. So he goes by B-A-Z as a first name though.
That's
but
pretty cool.
he has a couple indie films that he was the director of photography on, but he has no major work as a director of photography. But he was a camera operator for Vice, Legion, Rogue One, Westworld, True Detective, American Sniper, The Master, Mission Impossible, Ghost Protocol, and There Will Be Blood.
Yep.
So this guy's been sitting and waiting for a while, and I think his name's going to be one to remember going forward for cinematographers. I think this is going to be what springboards him into the limelight now, with
Absolutely.
the great
Is he doing the whole
Frasers
season?
of the culture. He's doing 6 episodes, and that's what
6 episodes.
that's what Greg Fraser did for season 1.
I assume kind of some of the more recurring people maybe have their own kind of DP that they use more often.
Yeah,
yeah,
maybe that's it.
But yeah, so I think he's I think he did a great job filming this episode. I think he's primed for a breakout now with that kind of resume that he's been growing on in the shadows. So Baz Idioni. Just remember that name. It's going to be one to remember, I think. But Jackson, I'll kick it to you. What do you think about Chapter 9, The Marshal?
It was funny because I don't get excited for things, which is a really sad thing to say. But I booted up this episode. I had like a couple meetings in the morning that I had to get through before the episode. I hopped down, had the coffee, and I started it up. And then like they go into kind of like the underground fighting ring, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm feeling this. And I'm like buzzing halfway through. I'm like, yeah, we're back in it. We're doing it. This felt so good. Like it's so weird that it kind of feels like they didn't skip a beat, but they're also like going above and beyond what was happening last season. It just feels so good, and like I think Cobb Vanth, like he plays such like a memorable kind of like supporting character role. I think maybe without that, it might be kind of like, oh, we're just kind of doing a Western thing, but like the way it actually plays out is really interesting, and they kind of give Mando a good foil in this episode, which I think he's missing in some of the like this episode's pretty similar in terms of like both where they are and like kind of style to like episode 5 of last year, but he had that annoying kid running around that no one liked, which made it so bad. And this is kind of like
hated that guy.
And this is kind of similar where they're going out into the sand and they're finding something, but he's got like a good foil with him, and I think Timothy Oliphant really brings that out. So yeah, I feel like I'm waiting for them to kind of do something. I've been saying this since like the first season, waiting for like the plot to like really come in, and I feel like this was kind of a good primer for this season. And then I'm kind of hoping to see kind of what's happening. I hate to be the like, yo, but what's the story? Like, give me this like the lore. I'm not necessarily looking for that, but I feel like they've just laid so many interesting like groundwork down that I'm ready for them to kind of spring off of that for this season. And this works well for that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think I'm like a little less hot on it than maybe you guys are. Not that I'm like not a fan. I don't know. I think there's some episodes in season 1 there probably I like a bit more, like episode 6, 7,
agree.
Or episode 3, 4, 7, 8. Like I love those. So I don't know if I would put them above that. But this was a great start of the season. I think I've said my piece pretty much, honestly, on all the stuff. I really liked it. Happy to see more.
Yeah, maybe it was just I just needed Mando season 2 so bad in my life, but like this episode,
we all did.
This episode is just the one. Like this is my favorite episode that we've gotten so far. Yeah. So I think that's why I'm not going to be able to control my hype for the rest of the season. I need my 10 out of 10s now, or I'm going to be sad.
They better hit after the first episode, because
you guys are going to have
the season kind of
you'll have to reel me in
really
throughout the next week, but try and keep me in check. But like, I mean, I don't know, man. Like the opening fight got the happy tears. The arrival of Cobb Vanth got the happy tears. When they flew in the jetpacks, that got the happy tears. It's just, this episode just hit so hard for me. I can't wait. I'm almost upset now that I do have to wait a week, but I kind of like the week-long build.
I know, it's hard.
I really do like the build, but yeah, I thought it was great. So I can't wait to see what's in store for chapter 10.
I like that they're continuing the chapters, by the way.
Yeah, I do too. Like it's just one long story.
Very continuous. I always love that stuff in everything. Like every time anything does it, I'm like, yeah. But this time it does feel kind of special.
Shout out to The Good Place. They do that.
Sure.
Oh, do they?
Shout out to The Good Place.
Yeah, shout out to The Good Place. That was a good show, I've heard.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so what about you watching or listening along? What did you think of the episode? I would love to hear your thoughts or comments. Leave a comment below on the YouTube video, or if you're listening to an audio only show, or if you want to do it anyway when you're watching video, you can tweet us your thoughts at Cantina Convo. Let us know what you think on there. Let us know what you think of the episode, the show, the Cobb Vanth. Are you somebody who is familiar with Cobb Vanth? Did he win you over? Do you think that's the last we've seen of Timothy Oliphant, aka Cobb Vanth?
Please no.
Do you think we'll see him again?
Hopefully.
I hope so.
Yeah, I do too.
If next episode is on
surprised if he doesn't.
absolutely.
They literally say, he literally says, I hope we cross paths again.
Yeah.
But I mean, that doesn't mean that they have to.
We call
But-
that.
I feel like they
in the
wouldn't put that
industry, we
in,
call
though,
it
just to-
Chekhov's gun.
I mean, I think
Yeah.
they will. I think they definitely will. But like, I saw a lot of people that were like, "You don't cast Timothy Oliphant for one episode." And it's like, are people
I've never heard
forgetting
of
that
Timothy
Star
Oliphant.
Wars is such a in-demand franchise that like A-list actors agree to just be stormtroopers in? Like,
Yeah,
This is
they
was
would
in the last
definitely
episode.
just cast a Timothy Oliphant for one episode.
absolutely.
So like,
We did this
People need
last season
to-
with Bill Burr, and I know Bill Burr is probably not like as good of a as like he's more
Amy
prominent, maybe
Sedaris.
like
yeah,
but like probably not as good of an actor. But it's still one episode.
like it's
so.
definitely within the realm of reason to assume he could only be in one episode, but
I
hopefully
would
not. But
yeah.
do you guys still think, though, since Boba did end up showing up in this episode, do we still think Ahsoka shows up this season?
I have no doubt, honestly.
You have no doubt?
I don't know if that's a hot take. I have absolutely zero doubt in my mind that Ahsoka
TJ has
will be in this.
expectations.
I have
Yeah.
expectations.
Yeah,
If I'm
I
there,
think-
not mad.
I will not be mad. I will not be mad. But I'm pretty much 100% Ahsoka is going to be in this episode this season.
yeah, I'm kind of leaning back into that camp now since they showed Boba first episode.
So early.
Yeah, I think they will. I and like I've said to you guys, I think it'll be chapter 5 because that's the one Filoni's directing and writing.
It's literally called The Sorceress,
Yeah, it's
according
just-
to leaks.
well,
Like you.
Those apparently were wrong.
Oh, were they? Okay.
Yeah,
never
because I
mind.
guess the chapter 9 title was not the Marshal and
Okay.
whatever those leaks were. So I didn't
Yeah,
never
Sasha
read them,
Banks
but I
coming
just know that oh yeah, I forgot about Sasha Banks. Well, I can't wait to see what character she's going to be playing.
She's definitely not to be in at this point. We're
No,
throwing her out the window.
apparently she's like a brand new character. there.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm excited for that. But yeah, anyway, you can just let us know on Twitter at Cantina Convo or in the comments of the YouTube section below. We also will have a link in the comment section and in the episode description where you can go to donate to a charity organization for trans rights, and things like that. Like we said in the last episode that we are going to be doing. Not thanks to, but because of Gina Carano's Instagram behavior. But yeah, so click that if you're interested.
Please.
And Jackson, where can the good people find you at on the internet?
You can catch me at Jackson W. Wells on Twitter. My phone's been blowing up today, thanks to our good friend Aaron Sini. He tagged us in something, and apparently I've got like 10 followers in the past 5 minutes. So shout out to him. I feel like his last name, I'm mispronouncing it, but I don't know.
I always
Shout
thought
out
it
to
was
you.
Shawnee, but I feel like that's bad. I feel like it's not Shoddy. I should not say that.
It's a Sean Bean situation here, or a
Yeah.
Scene
Yeah.
Bean situation. Anyways, yeah, you can follow me there and join the tens of people who have followed me in the past 10 minutes.
DJ, where can they find you at?
You can find me at DJ_Gillard on Twitter. I also got that tag, so I'm probably getting more too, but that's okay. That's fine. You can join.
Sorely
them.
disappointed, DJ. You don't tweet nearly enough. I need more
that's
takes.
true.
I'll try to do better.
But thank you for that, DJ. You can find me on Twitter at Papa Star Wars. And friendly reminder, as I said in the last episode, if you get our YouTube channel up to 50 subscribers, we will do a random giveaway for a Supreme Leader Kylo Ren Black Series action figure.
Jackson,
and then
you're not
after
going to
that,
point the right way. It's not going to happen.
and then if we even get
My
to,
screen's
if we get to 75 subscribers, we've got a Rey and Dio Black Series action figure. So we got some sweet giveaways in the docket here if we get our subscription levels up. But yeah, so subscribe to the channel, like us, share us, give us a rating if you haven't before. That stuff really helps the show. Spread us to anyone you know that likes Star Wars. Just say, hey, these 3 guys that I like talk about Star Wars. I think you might like them. That's all the effort that it would take to spread our show and grow our audience.
Let's say your mom likes Disney Plus and she's watching for Baby Yoda. Be like, hey, were you curious about the crate dragon's pearl that you saw, Mom, while you were watching
have
Baby
the
Yoda?
answers for you? See, I don't have a life, so that way you can keep one. That is what I'm here for. But yeah, so you can follow me on Papa Star Wars. Anyway, that will do it for us this week for the first of the comeback episodes of Mando Monday. Hashtag Mando Monday. Because that should be trending this very day. So please get us in those trendings. Anyway, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time.